just like the facts, which is that 97% of articles, scientific articles released about this subject have shown, scientifically proven and agreed that climate
change
is real.
Yeah.
Which is concerning, kind of, because there's still 3% that are totally ignoring it, but that's a very small number, so I guess that's good.
Actually, these notes from the talk.
And we have some notes.
Okay. So, a couple really important facts to say. The world average temperature right now has increased 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit. At its current rate, Vermont could be experiencing increases by the year 2100 of as much as 8 to 9 degrees Fahrenheit. But if we curb our emissions, we'll hopefully only hit 4 or 5 degrees Fahrenheit. And I know that, the difference between 70 degrees and 75 degrees isn't a whole lot. I mean, if I walked into a room that was 60 degrees versus 65 degrees, it'd feel like the same thing. But the world average temperature functions really differently. I mean, I'm at a comfortable body temperature of 98.6, but even if that was at a 99.6 or 100.6, you really start to feel uncomfortable. So if we have a global temperature raise of 9 degrees, you can't really run that fever and survive in the same way.
Yeah. Did you? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the average global temperature during the Ice Age was only 8 degrees cooler than it is now. So. Yeah,
and then there were glaciers that went all the way down north of America.
So I guess we should try to make this more of a discussion.
Yeah.
So I guess we can do a general overview quick of what the conference was about. So my first workshop was about electricity and conservation and usage. So we talked about what I found interesting is that every single other school just about that was there that I was talking with had some type of environmental club. It seemed very successful in all of the schools. They did hibernation vacation as an example of something where we go on a week break for Thanksgiving break.
Yeah.
So students go around the school with faculty and unplug appliances that are just taking up electricity when they aren't being used.
Yeah, and even if you have something turned off, just having anything plugged into an outlet is almost going to guarantee that you're using a little bit of electricity.
It's called a phantom load.
And when you add that, between all of the buildings that we have here at BHS, you start to see that a lot of energy is being used
when it doesn't need to.
For absolutely nothing.
Yeah. So I guess, does anyone have any comments about the environmental club? If that would work out, why it wouldn't work out, what some things could be that we could do.
Do many clubs at BHS?
We have a gardening club.
Gardening club, yeah. One of the models, I talked to some people from Colchester, and they had this really cool model of their climate club, which had started off with 3 people, and then in 1 year had jumped up to 30. What they did was they don't really have formalized meetings. They don't need to congregate together. They have Google Docs that they share between each other, and they communicate pretty much only online, and then they're able to do their own little projects and break off without having to worry about mandatory attendance or missing a meeting or going to a meeting that they have nothing to say. And I feel like that'd be a pretty productive model. It's not really a huge obligation that we could probably do at BHS.
Yeah.
Would it be more conversation oriented or activism oriented? What do you want to do? Kind of not specific projects, but as an end goal.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I think on a school scale, it doesn't do much to just talk about issues. When as students, I think we have a really great ability to act on them and actually make a difference in our school community. So I think just sitting with our hands behind our back would be kind of useless at that point. Yeah. So definitely taking some action.
One of the things that I believe about climate change is that no one person, or really not entirely one country, is ever at fault for it. It's really all about individuals and how much they use. So I know that there are some schools that now they'll separate their garbage and they'll use reusable silverware. And that's where I start to think of, okay, if I can take one plastic fork, if I take one plastic fork every lunch, that's 180 of them a year. Multiply that by probably the 800 students who get lunch at the school, and you start to have a really big problem that just if everyone did a little bit to pitch in, you can start making a huge difference. I think something like that a climate club where people are just more aware of what their impact is on the space around them, we could start to have little actions that can lead to much bigger steps.
So was it just Vermont high schools?
Yeah, mainly there were 2 high schools from northern New York.
Yeah, but there are like 20 something from Vermont.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was mainly Vermont.
And was there a specific school that was doing the reusing works thing? Was that just something that you came up with?
That's something that I've come up with, but I know that like they do it at Barnes, they do it at some other elementary schools. I was talking to some people from Colchester. They had started to sort their garbage, which is something that we've already been doing at BHS, but other schools really had to have a student initiative to go along with that. I still don't really think that we're sorting our garbage here.
I mean, yeah, I think schools such as Colchester and CVU specifically have done a really good job with their environmental club. So I think if we were to do something like that, we would look at them as models to see what worked, what didn't work, and like.
Yeah, I mean, the best part about coming into the game late is that you get to look at models that have failed and models that are really successful.
Yeah.
So we don't have to struggle and try to figure something out on our own.
Pascal.
Well, like we were talking to Ms. Mellencamp about this, and she said that BHS is one of the first schools to sort of have composting policies, but obviously no one pays attention to anything. Like the bins are just recycling, compost, trash, and people just throw everything in there. So.
Yeah, I see a lot of garbage get thrown into the composting.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Well, if we had compostable silverware, that wouldn't be as much of a problem. But we don't have that, and that's one little step we can do.
Yeah.
When they say, like, some places, like, I think Gilbert City has, like, compostable silverware, is it actually, like, how compostable is that?
No.
No,
A lot of
it's-
times the plastic or the material they make it, if they add a special chemical to it, it'll compost. That's like the logo, you know, those cups they use are
Yeah.
like
I thought they were
made of
gonna have
corn.
plants.
Yeah, whatever material they're made out of.
Compost at the same rate as organic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can throw them into a composter and eventually they'll break down. It's actually, I have some dog bags that come with an expiration date because after a certain point, they're compostable and they break down to the point where you shouldn't be using them, which I think is pretty cool.
So what other workshops did you do?
Okay.
Because it said there were 65 different workshops. So.
There's 65 different workshops. Everyone did 2. I don't know if there were 6. No, there were 10 different workshops.
Yeah, it was.
And then everyone did 2. Both of mine were on renewable energy.
Yeah.
The morning one that I talked about, we discussed all of the different environmentally friendly renewable energy sources and some of the trade-offs that come with them. In Burlington, we use a lot of biomass at the Moran plant, which sometimes it's hard to get biomass and then it still will emit pollutions, but you can do it in a very environmentally friendly way. Wind is pretty inexpensive, but then some people think that it might be ugly. Solar power is incredibly expensive, but then it's also being implemented in large farms, which lower the price, and then once you're set up with a solar panel, it requires far less maintenance than pretty much any other renewable source.
Yeah.
So,
My second workshop was about food systems, which is like food miles, how far our food travels and where we get it from. And I kind of got to brag a little bit because we're from Burlington and we're like one of the leaders in this area. So I talked about our gardening program, how we have school gardens, food, the farm to school initiative, that really strengthens the local economy as well. And we're getting healthier food that doesn't go through as much before it gets here. So I think other schools are going to look at us as an example for that rather than us looking at other schools for examples for other things. So I think that's really awesome that how far we've come with our food system.
And then for my second one, my second thing, which was also about renewable energy, Burlington's also come very far because we purchased the dam from Winooski recently, which means that the whole city is on 100% renewables, just for electricity. But I think that's a pretty big step forward.
Yeah.
And my second conference was about getting a grant. Okay, I think every single conference is run by like UVM students, and they just got done with midterms or finals or whatever it is. So they were all pretty done. And my second conference was really not as good as my first.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But I think there were definitely some pretty good sentiments. But some of the takeaways that I had was we really need to start acting now in little ways, which will eventually snowball into much larger decisions. And it's easy for us to wait out and think about, closing down a coal plant or, shutting down something that's really bad for the environment. But really, we should be focusing, at least at BHS, about a lot of the little things that we can do, which can add up. I think we should start thinking of models for a climate club, and I want to also get other people's inputs. But I think moving forward, the big takeaway from this is going to be that everyone can pitch in a little bit, and then the task gets a lot less scary.
Anyone have any? No.
Closing thoughts, any last questions?
Yeah, Ben.
You said there were like 10 different workshops you could choose from. How did the process of choosing that go, and like how did you get information about each workshop?
So
I was assigned.
I guess it was like a first come first served basis. Yeah. So I was one of the first people who said I wanted to go, so I got to choose the 2 workshops that I wanted to participate in, which were the 2 that obviously interested me most.
Yeah. And we only had 5 students go, so everyone had a different workshop. So everyone got to communicate a lot with different students. I didn't like see you after breakfast.
Yeah.
After the 3 cups of coffee.